From the Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Zahra Syed. Our top story tonight. The Marriott Crystal Gateway Hotel in Arlington, Virginia has canceled the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR's, 29th annual banquet due to multiple terror threats. The threats targeted not only the hotel, but also its staff, CAIR, and American Muslims. CAIR planned to host its annual banquet Saturday at the Marriott Crystal Gateway, a decade-long tradition. The anonymous threats included planting bombs in the hotel's parking garage and staging an attack on the hotel similar to the January 6, 2021 U.S. Capitol riot. CAIR has secured an alternate, secure location for its October 21st event with heightened security measures in place. However, the group canceled a similar October 28th event in Maryland as a safety precaution. The FBI is actively investigating the reported threats. The threats emerged shortly after CAIR revised its banquet programming to focus on supporting basic Palestinian human rights. Nihad Awad, CAIR's National Executive Director, a Palestinian American, strongly condemned the threats. He expressed CAIR's determination not to be silenced by anti-Palestinian racists and anti-Muslim bigots. More than 4,200 Palestinians have lost their lives so far, and casualties are still mounting amongst children and women as Israel continues its airstrikes on Gaza. The dead include more than 1,500 children and over 1,000 women. More than 13,000 Palestinians have been wounded. In the West Bank and East Jerusalem, the toll includes 81 fatalities, including 23 children and 1 woman, with at least 1,400 wounded. In Israel, at least 1,400 people have been killed and 3,800 injured since October 7th. On Friday, Israeli bombings struck areas in southern Gaza where Palestinians had been directed to seek safety, resulting in several fatalities. Palestinian news agency Wafa reports that 6 homes were destroyed, leading to 21 deaths and 79 others injured, mostly children and women. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, 16 displaced Palestinians seeking refuge in a church in Gaza lost their lives in an Israeli bombing. In the occupied West Bank, the Israeli army withdrew its vehicles from the Nur Shams refugee camp after conducting a raid that resulted in the deaths of 13 Palestinians, including 5 children. Meanwhile, mass protests erupted in Cairo, Egypt's Tahrir Square, demanding the opening of the Rafah crossing to allow aid into Gaza. Across the Muslim world, pro-Palestine protests spread after Friday prayers spanning from Tunisia to Malaysia. Demonstrations were reported in multiple countries, including Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Qatar, Iraq, and Yemen. The United Nations is grappling with restrictions on aid deliveries to Gaza, with Secretary General Antonio Guterres emphasizing the urgent need to move aid trucks into the region. Despite international efforts, no cargo planes or trucks have been allowed to enter the area as the Rafah crossing has been repeatedly bombed. Palestinian children in the besieged Gaza City have been writing their names on their hands so they can be easily found if they are killed by Israeli airstrikes. Footage shows many kids showing their arms and hands with their names in Arabic. The idea sparked after some of those killed in Israel's latest hospital attack in Gaza could not be identified. Families worried about their children's lives also are concerned they will be unable to identify their bodies. The Euromed Human Rights Monitor notes the Israeli army has killed on average 100 children per day in Gaza since its military offensive began on October 7th. It has documented the killings of more than 1,000 Palestinian children so far, with an estimated 167 more buried under the rubble of residential buildings destroyed by Israeli attacks. U.S. President Joe Biden avoided addressing a critical question about Israel's actions in Gaza during a recent press interaction. When asked if Israelis are operating within international laws, he sidestepped the question and promptly left the press interaction at Germany's Ramstein Air Base. Air Force One had made a fuel stop on the base for the journey back to Washington. This comes in the wake of the devastating bombing of Gaza's Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital earlier this week, where around 500 people were killed. The Israeli air attack also killed and injured a large number of displaced people sheltering at the church compound. Biden said Israeli and U.S. military officials are in discussions about potential alternatives to Israel's anticipated ground operation in Gaza. He said efforts to evacuate U.S. citizens from Gaza are ongoing. In a recent phone conversation with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi following his visit to Israel, Biden said Egypt has agreed to allow about 28 trucks into Gaza. Israel has received a new batch of U.S. military aid as part of the package allocated by Washington. The Israeli Ministry of Defense said Israel has received the first shipment of American armored SUVs as part of the package. These armored SUVs will replace the vehicles damaged during conflicts. Israel's Director General of the Ministry of Defense, Eyal Zamir, has authorized purchase orders within Israel and abroad for vehicles and heavy equipment totaling more than $98.7 million. The procurement includes armored ambulances, armored operational vehicles, tactical trucks, and mechanical engineering equipment. Senator Bernie Sanders has thwarted a Republican attempt to impose stricter conditions on humanitarian aid to Gaza. The move comes amid Israel's ongoing bombardment. Sanders objected to Senator Rick Scott's proposal titled Stop Taxpayer Funding of Hamas Act. This legislation seeks to halt aid to Gaza until the president certifies the funds would not benefit Hamas or any other designated terrorist organization. It would also prevent U.S. funds from being allocated to Gaza through any United Nations entity that could be seen as endorsing anti-Israel and anti-Semitic ideologies. Sanders condemned Hamas's actions and called them barbarous. He also noted that the U.S. and the United Nations already have safeguards in place to prevent aid diversion to terrorist groups. Sanders urged fellow senators to consider the plight of innocent civilians, particularly children, who lack basic necessities such as food, water, and fuel. Recent Israeli airstrikes have resulted in thousands of Palestinian casualties and extensive damage to civilian infrastructure. Gaza, already one of the world's most impoverished regions, has been under Israeli blockade since 2007, worsening the crisis. The State Department has urged Americans abroad to remain on alert due to the heightened potential for attacks against them and U.S. interests. In a global travel advisory, the State Department said due to increased tensions, it is advisable for American citizens to exercise increased caution. The advisory comes amid the ongoing violence in Gaza. A prominent Italian journalist has criticized Israel's actions in Gaza, labeling them war crimes. Speaking to Anadolu news agency, Romana Rubio accused international organizations and the media of protecting Israel from accountability. Rubio says Israel's repeated violations of international and humanitarian laws have gone unchecked. The United Nations has warned of a humanitarian crisis in Gaza due to ongoing Israeli attacks. Rubio emphasized the majority of casualties are women and children. She called for international pressure on Israel to respect civilian populations and facilitate humanitarian aid access. Rubio also noted the use of white phosphorus bombs in Gaza, a violation of international law. She highlighted Israel's demand for hospital evacuations, a move that hospital management rejected, fearing dire consequences for patients. Rubio also criticized Western countries for shielding Israel from consequences both legally and in media portrayal. She emphasized the need for truth-telling about the situation. The Israeli police arrests popular Palestinian singer. Details come after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Israeli authorities have detained Dalal Abu Amna, a prominent Palestinian singer from Nazareth, on allegations of incitement and support for Palestine. Abu Amna, who has more than 300,000 followers on social media, was apprehended by northern Israeli police following the emergence of certain posts. Israeli police said the singer is considered an influential figure in Arab society. It said some of her content was deemed to be in opposition to the state of Israel and supportive of Palestine. She was taken into custody and investigated for behavior potentially endangering public security and safety. Israeli police intend to request an extension of her detention in the Nazareth Magistrates Court. No immediate comment from Abu Amna's legal representative was available. The arrest comes amid increased scrutiny of Palestinians' social media activity by Israeli authorities, particularly following its recent conflict with Gaza. Israeli police have reportedly detained 40 Palestinians in East Jerusalem on charges of incitement since the start of the Gaza conflict. Abu Amna identifies herself on her Instagram page as a Palestinian singer, producer, and doctoral researcher in neurosciences. A 46-year-old man in Lombard, Illinois, is facing hate crime charges stemming from a disturbing incident involving two Muslim men. According to authorities, Larry York approached one of the Muslim men waiting in a car around 8:30 p.m. and began verbally abusing the man. York told the man he did not belong in the country, police said. He then allegedly punched the car window and confronted a second Muslim man in the apartment complex's lobby, where he also used offensive language and threatened violence, police said. Later on, York encountered the men again. He lifted the bench they were seated on, causing one of them to fall to the ground. He then reportedly threatened to shoot them, using explicit language and expressing hostility based on their ethnicity and religion. York was taken into custody at a Lombard bar and charged with 2 counts of a hate crime. Lombard Police Chief Tom Wersing denounced York's actions, emphasizing such behaviors are unacceptable in the diverse community. York's next court appearance is scheduled for November 3rd. 3 Ailing Uyghur women recently freed from a Chinese Xinjiang prison died within days of their release. Their deaths shed light on the dire conditions faced by inmates in the region. The 3 women, 2 sisters in their 30s, Malika and Marzia, and a 75-year-old grandmother, had been detained at the Banquet women's prison in Gulja, Xinjiang. They were imprisoned on charges of religious extremism, a term broadly encompassing Uyghurs practicing their faith. Banquet women's prison, constructed in the wake of mass arrests of Uyghurs and other Turkic minorities in 2017, houses more than 10,000 inmates. A report says detainees are suffering from deteriorating health, especially those older or having pre-existing medical conditions. Chinese authorities have claimed the re-education camps have been closed. Yet there is mounting evidence many Uyghurs still are held in prisons. The situation in the Banquet women's prison reportedly has worsened over the past year, with a noticeable increase in deaths among detainees. An official with the prison's medical affairs department confirmed the death of the sisters and an elderly woman named Aisham Gul, serving a 9-year sentence. The deaths underscore the urgent need for international attention and action to address the ongoing human rights crisis in Xinjiang. Former Trump attorney Sidney Powell pleaded guilty in the Georgia election interference case. The move throws a spotlight on the legal challenges surrounding former President Donald Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Powell's plea came just a day before her trial's jury selection was set to begin. Powell, along with Trump and 17 others, faced charges under Georgia's Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, or RICO for short, for attempting to overturn the 2020 election results in the state. Trump faces 13 criminal charges across 4 states and federal cases, totaling 91 counts. As part of her plea deal, the 68-year-old Powell will serve 6 years of probation, pay a $6,000 fine, and issue an apology letter to the state and the people of Georgia. She also is obliged to testify truthfully against her co-defendants in future trials. Powell is the second defendant in the Georgia case to take a plea deal following bail bondsman Scott Hall's guilty plea last month. Powell had alleged Dominion voting systems conspired to manipulate voting machines in favor of President Joe Biden. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.